Happy Sunday, Dolphins fans, and welcome into Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am Nic Rohloff. Obviously, this weekend was rocked by shocking news as Shaq Barrett retired from the NFL, and we broke that down yesterday, and we discussed initially a possible replacement and a couple names for Barrett, but on today's show, I want to go through the top guys that could actually replace Shaq Barrett through NFL free agency. And make sure you are subscribed to the channel, because when news happens, we cover it, and then we talk about the fallout afterwards. So hit that sub button. I'm Nic Rohloff. We'll have you covered on anything you need. But obviously, this is becoming a big need for Miami, because I said that this edge department has been one of the best units in football and one of the best units on the Miami Dolphins. Like, I know they've been banged up with injuries, and we've talked about that in depth, but fully healthy Chubb, Phillips, Barrett, Chop Robinson, Mohamed Kamara, to me, was a top 5 edge unit in the NFL. I mean, that's as good as a top 5 as you'll find. But after Barrett retired, you now can't rely on just Chubb, Phillips, Robinson, Kamara, Cameron Good. Like, you've got 3 names there that are completely banged up, and unfortunately, those 3 names I mentioned are the veterans. So you can't rely on rookies to come in and give you that crazy impact right away. So to me, it is absolutely imperative that the Dolphins go out and sign an edge rusher to add to this room to not only provide depth, but provide leadership for some of the rookies to start. Because sure, they're going to get a lot of reps, but Chubb and Phillips, because they're on the PUP list, can't really participate in team activities. So you're going to really leave those rookies on an island with just the coaching staff. I think it would be helpful to get a veteran in here that could also teach them some of the ropes. Now, the first name we're going to talk about today is Emmanuel Ogbah, the former Miami Dolphin. Why, you might ask? Well, this morning, it was reported from Cameron Wolfe, who covers the Dolphins as a national guy for NFL Network. He reported that Emmanuel Ogbah is going to be working out and be in the facilities of Miami on Monday. And to me, it actually would not surprise me if Emmanuel Ogbah was signed on Monday. Listen, there's a lot of familiarity between the two parties, obviously. And the reason why they let him go is because of the cap hit earlier this offseason. But Ogbah didn't want to return to Miami because he wanted to play in a scheme that better fit him. But now that Vic Fangio is officially out, because all that happened prior to Fangio leaving, I think there's a better fit with Anthony Weaver's style of defense, and I think an Ogbah reunion could make a lot of sense. I mean, he was really good for Miami in the 4 years he played for the Dolphins after coming over from Kansas City and Cleveland. Ogbah, in his first 2 years for the Dolphins in 2020 and 21, had 9 sacks in each of those years, followed up with 1 sack in 22 and 9 games played, battled injuries, and then last year in rotation, wasn't the starter, obviously, but had 5.5 sacks. So a very respectable season for Ogbah. I know Dolphins fans were not happy with the production based off how much he was getting paid, but I do think it was respectable enough to where we can confidently say the dude isn't absolutely cooked. Now, he is going on the plus side of 30, but like I said, he's familiar with the system, or with the organization, not the system, new system with Anthony Weaver. But I would like Ogbah as that third edge rusher, and I think he still has some good stuff left in the tank. Is he as good as Shaq Barrett? Probably not, but what are you going to do when you're trying to replace Barrett here in late July, a couple days before training camp begins? So to me, Emmanuel Ogbah, who's working out with the team on Monday, wouldn't be shocked if he signs on Monday, so stay alert for that. We'll have you covered. Is one of the top options to replace Shaq Barrett. Before we get into some other names, let me know who you want to replace Shaq Barrett down in the comment section. Drop a free agent, hell, maybe even a trade as well. We're mostly focusing on free agents today, but I might do a video early this week if they don't sign anyone, or Ogbah doesn't sign, on trade targets to replace Shaq Barrett. All right, let's transition into the second guy, who I think is probably the best available, but I think Ogbah's a better fit, and I think it's more likely they go with him. But here's the second, Yannick Ngakoue. Well, we briefly talked about him yesterday because he's just been one of the most productive players in the NFL since he's came into the National Football League, right? And we talked about the stat that was insane, that he's had 8 or more sacks in every single year of his career besides 1, and that was last season. I mean, he started his year, first 4 seasons in Jacksonville, then was with Minnesota and Baltimore, Las Vegas, Indianapolis, and he combined for 8 sacks or more every single year besides the last one in Chicago. Like, he is someone who's had double-digit sacks multiple years, for only 4 sacks last season for the Bears. Kind of a down year for him. Battled injuries as well. Got a lot of attention from opposing offensive linemen that he didn't usually see from the other teams that he played with. But I think Ngakoue still has some good stuff left in the tank. Now, I do want to preface this when we're talking about Yannick Ngakoue, is that most edge rushers, you don't really expect them to be that impactful in the run game, right? Their job is to get after the quarterback. But with Ngakoue, that is extremely clear, he's not the best run stopper at all, but he is an effective pass rusher. And like I said on yesterday's video, if you watch the breaking news, is like you get him in rotation, just working in snaps alongside Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, coming in relief for a couple plays for one of the two of them, and subbing in when he's got fresh lugs in the fourth quarter against tired offensive lines. Like, I think Yannick Ngakoue as a third guy could be absolutely dominant. And I mentioned the potential mentorship that could be displayed by a veteran. Yannick is probably one of the best ones here because out of all the free agents available, he is the most experienced and has been the best in his career. So I think Yannick Ngakoue could make a lot of sense. And if it were to me in a vacuum, I would choose Ngakoue, but I would understand going Emmanuel Ogbah. Let's move over to Tyus Bowser now, who has played in 6 years of his career, all of them with the Baltimore Ravens, which obviously means he has played with Anthony Weaver when he was the defensive line coach. Now, he didn't play in 2023 due to injury, but Bowser could return and be an option for the Miami Dolphins. He's had an okay career through those 6 seasons that I mentioned. He has 19 and a half sacks, so he's not someone that's going to come out and dominate, but he did have 7 sacks in the 2021 season, so the capability of kind of popping off and having a big season of getting after the pass or the quarterback is there, but he just has never been able to be a lead guy. And it wouldn't shock me if the Dolphins stayed away from Bowser, but I also see this being a seamless marriage because Bowser's worked with Anthony Weaver. Weaver knows him. So to me, I think familiarity might be the name of the game here when it comes to the Dolphins and whoever they end up signing or getting to replace Shaq Barrett. Like, Ogbah has had experience with the Dolphins. Bowser has experience with the Dolphins defensive coordinator. Like, to me, I think one of those two guys makes a lot of sense because there's that already familiarity there. Another name that we need to talk about, we've talked about in the past, is Carl Lawson. And he got off to a hot start in his career, played 4 seasons in Cincinnati, and had about 20 sacks. Like, he was really good for the Bengals. Then he unfortunately tore his Achilles in 2021, missed that entire year, and then bounced back in 2 years with New York. Very strange because in 2022, the first year after the torn Achilles, 7 sacks. Like, really good. Like, torn Achilles could be the kiss of death for some edge rushers because the amount of get off and explosiveness you need, like, your Achilles is a big part of that. And it's interesting to see the 2022 season go so well for Carl Lawson, and then following year, battle injuries once again, played like in no games, 5 tackles, no sacks, like no stats. So interested to see if Carl Lawson would be able to bounce back and be a effective pass rusher again after having such a down 2023, but he has had a lot of production in the past. 2 seasons with 5 or plus more sacks, 1 year with 8.5. Like, he is someone who's had success back in the Cincinnati days and could be an intriguing name for the Dolphins. Last one we're going to get into is Markus Golden, who has had a very distinguished career across the Arizona Cardinals, then went to the Giants, and then went back to the Cardinals, played in Pittsburgh last year. He's had 3 seasons where he's finished with 10 or more sacks. Early in his career, 12.5. In his second season with the Cardinals, did 10 sacks with the Giants in 2019, 11 sacks with the Cardinals in 2021, and then had a couple down years last couple with Arizona and Pittsburgh. Played in a lot of games, 17 games in 2022, 16 games in 23. So he is someone that you can rely on, has played in double-digit games every single year of his career but one, that 1 year in 2017. So he's been a durable player, and he's had okay production, like 4 sacks last year, 2.5 the year prior, 51 for his career. Older player for sure. He's been around the block. He's 33 years old, been in the league for a long time, man. 2015 draft, second round pick, but he's also someone that's had a lot of success and production in this league. And that's kind of where I want to go with that, right? Like when you're replacing Shaq Barrett, who signed to a 1-year deal in free agency, like he was productive for Denver, for Tampa, 2-time Super Bowl champion. Like I think it's very important that your signing is someone who's had a lot of production in the NFL. And I think something that I want to touch on real quick before we actually head out of here is the impact of Calais Campbell, because that signing from a month or so ago, whenever it was, like, is so massive now. Obviously, you signed him with Shaq Barrett still on the roster, so you had the intention of using him on the interior of your defensive line more, but he's played edge a lot in his career with Jacksonville, with Arizona, with Baltimore. Did it a little bit with Atlanta last season because of how bad they were at that edge group. So to me, like, whoever you sign is fine, but you also will need to throw in the caveat that Calais Campbell can play a little bit of edge for you. So to me, that is as big as anything here. They're going to sign someone. They're going to add another edge rusher to this room. There's no doubt about that. Those not names that I've mentioned today make the most sense. Emmanuel Ogbah, Yannick Ngakoue, Tyus Bowser, Lawson, Markus Golden. But I do think Calais Campbell will play a decent amount of edge for this team as well under Anthony Weaver. I'm very excited to see who the Dolphins end up adding. Sucks that Shaq Barrett retired, but like I said yesterday, wish him well on his future endeavors and his post-NFL career with his family. But the Dolphins need to go sign someone. Those are the top 5 names I think they could go sign. And when they do sign someone, we will cover it with a video. So make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you tomorrow. Maybe without Emmanuel Ogbah breaking news. But either way, Nic Rohloff signing off. Go Fins.